Blog Talk Radio. Hi, and welcome to The Art of Film Funding. I'm your co-host, Claire Papin, along with Carol Dean, author of the best-selling book, The Art of Film Funding. Carol is also the founder and president of From the Heart Productions and the host of this show. Today we are joined by our guest host, filmmaker Heather Lenz, best known for directing and producing the Sundance documentary Kusama Infinity. Our special guest today is John Onderdonk, the co-founder and CEO of Flume TV, an innovative ad-supported streaming service dedicated to independent content. Prior to founding Flume TV, John accumulated 5 years of media strategy experience at Comcast NBCUniversal. During this tenure, he held roles in corporate development, corporate strategy, cable FP&A, and NBCU corporate strategy and business development, with a focus on forming the company's direct-to-consumer streaming strategy. Currently based in Palo Alto, California, John is originally from Dallas, Texas. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with highest distinction from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He's currently pursuing an MBA at the Stanford Graduate School of Business, where he also serves as the student body co-president, leading various initiatives to enhance the student experience and foster a vibrant community. Today, we'll discuss Flume TV.
Thank you so much, Claire, for the introduction, and thank you, John, for joining us today. For anyone who hasn't heard about Flume TV, can you please tell us about it in your own words?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. So Flume TV was an idea that my co-founder, Brandon Whiteley, who's one of my best friends from growing up, and I had last year, and we've kind of devoted our summer to working on. It's an idea that essentially is we're facing a dichotomy in the entertainment industry right now, where on the one end of the spectrum you have the premium SVOD services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max that the customers pay for, and that are pretty exclusive when it comes to the type of content that they accept on those platforms. Like it's pretty hard for independent filmmakers to get featured on those platforms and get licensing deals. And then on the way other end of the spectrum, you have YouTube, which is obviously an ad-supported free service that has user-generated content, but it's really sort of any type of content goes. Like you have your if you're a filmmaker and you put your movie up there, it's featured next to sports highlights and the Joe Rogan podcast and all that other stuff. And so we're trying to create sort of a bridge between the two, a middle ground that will be a free ad-supported streaming service dedicated to independent films that maybe have not secured the distribution deals that they want on one of the major players. And the idea here is to benefit both the filmmakers and then also audiences that want a free content viewing experience, but more premium quality than you would get on YouTube.
Terrific. And what made you interested in starting a new streamer?
Yeah, so I mean, as my background suggests, I spent a lot of time working with Peacock, which is the streaming service that Comcast NBCUniversal owns, and I think it's a really exciting space. And obviously, the industry is changing so rapidly. Like just a few years ago, it was basically only Netflix and Hulu, and then now all of the studios are launching their own streaming services to the point now where we have like 8 different paid streaming services. And I think two things really stood out to me and made me have this idea for this independent streaming service. The first is that people are sick of paying for additional streaming services. Like the average U.S. household is subscribed to 5 streaming services, and it may not sound like a lot, but when you add up the monthly bill, you're getting close to what you were paying for cable. And then in addition to that, in addition to the people being kind of tired of paying for subscriptions, all of these streaming services are now taking a focus on original content, and they're really prioritizing their own original content, both in the algorithms on their platform, but then also even in the content that they're acquiring for the platform is mostly original. And so when you put those two things together, you kind of end up with independent filmmakers sort of getting cut out of the monetary pipeline in this industry. And so I think that those are the problems that rose to the table for us and inspired us to start this service.
Yeah, I am certainly aware of all of the issues you're raising. So yes, I'm glad you're thinking of a new way to do things. Will you screen both narrative films and documentaries on your service?
Yeah, so the pretty much the criteria to be on our service is having a narrative-based film, and so that I think I would categorize that either into scripted content or documentary-based content. And we're also very much open to including short films on the platform. So as a matter of fact, I think over half of our titles right now are short films. And we can go a little bit deeper into short films later if you'd like. But I think that short films are a really interesting and kind of overlooked area of the market where they don't really have a great distribution solution. And it kind of boggles my mind that you'll have super high quality short films that they've won the Academy Award for best short film, and the place that you go to watch them is on YouTube. So it's a little bit strange in that regard, but we're very focused on narrative content, whether scripted or whether documentary.
Great. And is there any other criteria that filmmakers who are interested in having their films on Flume TV should know about?
Yeah, so we the selection process for including content on our platform is very much an individual case-by-case basis. We highly encourage filmmakers to enter their films into the film festivals and try to garner accolades in that regard, because that to us is a signal of quality. And it's really amazing the number of films that receive accolades from these major film festivals and then still have trouble getting picked up for good distribution deals. And so I think for us, like films that have been through the film festival circuit and are, kind of still struggling to pick up distribution are right up our alley. But we're honestly really, even if you haven't gotten that far in your filmmaking journey, we're very open to all types of scripted and documentary content. And so we sit through and watch every single one that gets submitted. And so we're kind of the ultimate judges of what gets featured on the platform.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear you're also watching all these films. And how do filmmakers who are interested apply?
Yeah, so our website is actually live right now. If you go to flume-tv.com, then there's a section on the website that's for creators, and you can go in there and you can submit your own film. You just enter in sort of the metadata as well as the film file and then the film image, and it's as easy as that. We get it on our end, and then the approval process is usually very, very quick. And I think we're kind of unique in that way. I'm sure lots of filmmakers would love if Netflix or Hulu or any of these other services had a section on the site where you could go in and submit a film for consideration. But we have that feature ourselves, and we're very excited at the quality of films we've been getting and are very excited to feature them on the platform.
That's great. And what are the delivery materials, and will it cost the filmmaker extra money to create them?
So no, it will not cost the filmmaker any money to create the delivery materials. They're very standard, and we haven't encountered any issues where the filmmakers didn't have these materials off the shelf. It's just kind of the metadata. So who is the director? Who is the writer? What is the cast? What is the description of the movie? Did the movie receive any awards? And then just literally the MP4 file, 1080p of the film, and then the sort of the thumbnail for just a picture file with the thumbnail for the movie.
Great. And how will people who visit the Flume TV website be able to find content of interest to them?
Yeah, so this is actually something that's still a bit of a work in progress on our end, but we are so my co-founder Brandon, he actually he's currently a master in computer science student at the University of Texas, and he previously completed a master in business analytics, and he is working on a sophisticated algorithm that will kind of bubble up content that would be of interest to users once you learn a little bit more about the users. So we're currently working on kind of an initial flow of when the user signs up, maybe asking them a few questions about what their tastes are, what their content preferences are. And then after they get registered with the site, we are able to sort of keep tabs on, what people enjoyed, how they rated what they watched, if they stopped watching something in the middle of it, or if they saw something through all the way to the end. And then we can kind of do comparative analytics among all the films that we have on the site and be like, oh, this person really enjoyed film A, which is really similar to film B, and so we're going to recommend this person film B the next time that they come on the site. And this process will only get better and better and better as we get more data, because eventually, as we have more and more users on the platform, we can actually make comparisons between users themselves and be like, oh, if user A liked this film and user B is very similar to user A, then user B will also probably like this film. And so we've got a bunch of analytics under the hood that we're going to be using to make sure that the most relevant films are bubbling up for people when they first land on the site. And in addition to that, we are also going to put in a bit of a feedback mechanism in terms of rating films, and we're also going to try to make this more of an interactive community where people can leave comments on films and people can interact, because I think that the independent filmmaking community from all accounts is really tight-knit, and people love to discuss films with each other. And so I think we're going to try to make this a very discussion-based and interactive platform where it has kind of that community feel to it.
Great. Well, I will say one thing I would love when I go to streamers that often is not available is the ability to say, search for films by women directors or by Black women directors or by queer directors or things like that in addition to content. So I personally feel that Netflix is notoriously bad for thinking it knows what I'm going to want to watch. So hopefully, you can, improve on that. But since this is an ad-based platform, is it fair to say that the short films will have fewer ads than features and therefore earn less money for the filmmakers?
Yeah, I think that in broad strokes that's correct. Which I think when you think about it, there's like the level of resources that goes into making a full length feature film is often a lot more than goes into making a short film. So it's kind of there's sort of a risk reward trade off there, and there will be additional compensation for people who have a longer length film. The way that we're thinking about our advertising at the moment right now is that we are just planning to do pre-roll ads before the movie starts. We feel strongly that the best movie watching experience is one that is uninterrupted from start to finish, and so we don't want you getting to the climax of this new amazing movie and there's a cliffhanger and then all of a sudden you're hit with an ad for Clorox or whatever it be. And so we are going to have pre-roll advertisements that are going to be determined, and the length of the pre-roll advertisements are going to be determined in part by the length of the individual piece of content. So let's say for for if you have a feature-length film. So if right now, if you go on Hulu or if you go on Peacock, the standard length of an advertisement is about 3 minutes for like the total amount of the film. And so we would have that 3 minutes of ads up front. So you watch the 3 minutes of ads. You can almost look at it like the trailers of if you're going to see a movie in the theaters. And then once those are done, then you get to watch the film in its entirety. And then on the short film side, we are planning right now to just have 1 minute of advertisement. So that would be like 2 30-second ad slots at the beginning of a short film. And I think the reason for this is just that if you're going to watch like a 10-minute short film, a lot of users would not be willing to put up with 3 minutes of ads to watch something that's 10 minutes. I think the advertisement to content ratio it would be a bit out of whack in that sense.
Yeah, well, this is interesting that you plan to put the ads at the beginning. So if someone sits down to watch a feature film and they sit through those ads, but then they only watch half the feature film, does that mean the filmmaker will still be paid for the fact that people sat through those ads for their film?
That's right. That's correct.
And then how will you split the ad revenue with the filmmakers?
So it's going to kind of be it's changing a little bit right now. So before launch, for the filmmakers who signed up with us before we actually had a site up and running, we offered them 60% of the advertising revenue, and that's obviously it's a startup. It's speculative. People are taking a risk in the sense of their time and like putting together the film materials for us. Now that we've actually launched the site, we're thinking about doing a 50-50 split on the ad revenue, which is consistent with what YouTube and some of the other AVOD players are doing. And that allows us to keep, to pay for site maintenance costs and things like that. And we really want this to be sort of an equal partnership that we have with filmmakers. So that's how we settled on the 50-50 split.
Great. And how often do you plan to pay the filmmakers whose films are at your site?
Right now, we're still in the middle of getting the advertising and payment system set up, but once we have that, we're planning to do quarterly to start, and then over time, as we scale, we hope to shift that to be monthly in line with what YouTube does. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we are trying to make our site be essentially like a more attractive version of YouTube when it comes to independent filmmakers. We want to have very similar terms as YouTube in the ad revenue that we're paying out, and we also want to have very similar terms in the sense that it's an at-will agreement. So filmmakers can put their films on our site, and then let's say that their film blows up and they get an exclusive deal with Netflix. They're perfect. They're totally allowed to take their film down from our site and go pursue the deal with Netflix. We think it's great. We want to elevate filmmakers in this process, and we sort of want to be a bridge for them. And so we want to be like YouTube in the terms that we're offering, but we want to be much more targeted and get filmmakers more visibility with an audience that is there to watch independent films, because YouTube in their algorithms, they really prioritize high volume uploaders, and they deprioritize people who take a year to craft something that's really incredible and put a lot of time and effort to it. And if you're somebody who uploads once a year, even if it's an amazing film, you're probably not going to get discovered on YouTube. So we want to have very similar terms to YouTube, but with a much more curated experience.
Well, that's an excellent point. Anyone who spends any time on YouTube knows that there are some people that basically upload the same video over and over every week. They're just like wording it slightly differently, and you think, oh my gosh, you just posted that. But
right, and that gets rewarded. It gets rewarded in the algorithm.
Yeah. So when films are posted online, piracy is always a risk. How will your team protect filmmakers from having their work pirated?
I think that piracy is a really big risk for filmmakers. I think that actually, though, it's less of a risk than it was previously. So in the industry, obviously, you would have to go to your local Walmart or whatever and pay $20, $25, $30 for a DVD, Blu-ray copy of a film. And I think that in those days, it was extremely expensive to acquire a given film, and as a result, there was piracy was much more prevalent than it is today. I actually think that piracy is on the way down, and it's actually on the way down both for music as well. I think music is actually a really interesting parallel because so in the music industry, for instance, when you had to pay for an individual song, there was a strong incentive to pirate. But now Spotify has come along, and Spotify has created such a good user experience that it's actually now more of a hassle to pirate your music than it is to just pay, whatever it costs for a Spotify subscription every single month. And so the incentive to pirate has gone way down because the user experience of the buy the book option is so much better. And I think that is something that we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to create such a good user experience that the incentive to pirate is extremely low. And something again to keep in mind is that the films on our site are going to be free to access for users, and then there will just be a pre-roll advertisement at the beginning. And from where I stand, I think it would actually be much more of a hassle to try to pirate something versus just watching the 3-minute advertisement at the beginning of a film. And so we're trying to combat piracy by making a really high quality user experience and adding in features that people won't be able to get anywhere. And obviously there's always going to be some piracy that's on the margins, but I think fortunately for filmmakers and musicians as well, I think the user experience has kind of driven down the need for piracy.
Well, that's interesting. So if I'm not mistaken, you've just launched, and I'm wondering if you can tell us how many films approximately you have available at this point.
Yeah, so we just launched this month. We have the site up and running. As I said, it's flume-tv.com. The site has approximately 40 to 50 films on it at the moment, and we have a bunch more in the pipeline that we're working on getting uploaded to the site. And yeah, it's been a lot of work getting the site up, and all credit, most of the credit to my co-founder on that. And we're very excited to have it up and running and be off to the races and continuing our discussions with filmmakers, and yeah, definitely encourage people to check it out.
Great. And as you move forward, how do you plan to find new viewers?
Yeah, so I think that at the end of the day, the success of the platform is going to be driven by finding viewers, finding filmmakers, and making sure that their interests are aligned and that we're able to facilitate transactions on behalf of both the viewers and the filmmakers in terms of giving filmmakers an audience and then giving viewers something that's really interesting and engaging for them to watch and maybe something that they haven't seen on other platforms. From a marketing perspective, I think we're going to be marketing ourselves as kind of the anti-streaming service to some extent, because we're gonna have a lot of the content that you wouldn't find on the major streaming services, and we're gonna for those who are sick of kind of the big blockbuster movies and the spin-offs after spin-off and the sequel after sequel, I think for people who are looking for new innovative storytelling, that's how we're gonna market ourselves to audiences. And we're also pursuing partnerships with some of the big film festivals. And I think that when you look at who our initial audience is going to be, it's going to be the audiences that are going to these film festivals and are interested in being on the cutting edge of the films that are out there. And so we're gonna try to be working closely with film festivals to do some cross promotion and try to get the people who are going to those onto our platform, because I think that's exactly the type of audience that we want to be serving.
Great. And before launching, did you do any testing of the market to determine the appetite for another streamer?
Yeah, we did. We did a lot of customer interviews in the spring, and I'm actually doing a startup class now at Stanford where I'm asking a lot of similar questions. And I think that people, when you ask the question, like, what is your appetite for another streamer, people's initial reaction is like, oh no, like not another subscription that I have to pay for. But once you like get into the concept a little bit and be like, oh no, this is a free ad-supported service, then suddenly people are much more open to the idea. And I think there is a lot of fatigue out there of people who are really tired of the kind of big blockbuster and sequel-driven franchises, and people want to see more niche and more indie content. And so I think people have been really open to the idea. We've had very strong reviews on the initial version of the site, and are very happy with the enthusiasm we've had so far.
Great. Well, we've already discussed some of the ways that Flume TV will be different from other streamers. Is there anything else you want to add that we haven't already talked about?
I think we covered most of the main points. I think that the one other point to just sort of highlight is that I think the terms that we're going to be offering to filmmakers are kind of unique in the industry in the sense that we want to give them a platform for them to get discovered and potentially even picked up by one of these major streaming services, because I think that is when you get down to it, that's a goal for a lot of filmmakers. And so that's kind of the point behind our at-will contracts. And we think that in the long run, we are going to be benefiting from the fact that we're being very flexible with filmmakers and letting them take their content elsewhere. Because I think a lot of filmmakers are hesitant about being locked into some super long-term contract that they can't get out of in case a better deal comes along. And we don't want filmmakers to feel that pressure. And then one additional feature that we are adding on the site that I think is kind of unique to Flume. I actually think Spotify does this really well. We are adding a page for each creator who wants to create a profile. So if there's a particular director that you really like, or if there's a particular actress that you really like, and you want to see everything that they've done that's on our platform, you can go to their page and sort of see their bio, see what they've done, and go through their catalog. And I think that this is a really artist-forward way of pitching the site. Is like it's a place where people who are truly invested in your art and want to get to know you more as an artist can come to see your work and what you've done.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I also want to mention, for indie filmmakers, it's also great that they don't have to have a sales agent involved who's going to be taking a cut of, whatever revenue does come in for reaching out to you. The filmmakers can reach out to you directly. So
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Important.
Yeah, they can reach out. They can reach out to us directly, and there's really no middleman that's involved in this process. It's pretty much us just working directly with the filmmakers and whoever owns the rights to the content.
Great. And John, to help our audience get to know you a little better, could you tell us 3 of your favorite movies?
Ooh, yes. I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan. I think my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie is Inglourious Basterds. And then this is so tough. I think I also am going to have to put Empire Strikes Back on the list. Was a huge Star Wars fan growing up, and I think that truly is just one of the greatest films ever made. And then, the third one. Okay, I think I'm also a big Martin Scorsese fan, and so I think, and my favorite Scorsese film has to be Goodfellas. So that's those are my 3: Inglourious Basterds, Empire Strikes Back, and Goodfellas.
Well, there's a lot of testosterone coming out of these kids.
There is. I do like the melodramas as well, but yeah, that is a very action-filled 3 films there.
Yes, you're going to need to add some estrogen at your company. All right. So you have mentioned your website, but I think it'd be great if you mention it again, as well as any other social media handles that our listeners can use to follow you, and also your co-founder, Brandon Whiteley.
Yeah, so so as I said before, flume-tv.com, and if you're a filmmaker out there listening and you want to get connected with us, I would say that the best way to do that would be to either upload a film directly on the site if everything that we've talked about on this podcast sounds good to you, or you can also get in touch with, both of us are on LinkedIn. So my name's John Onderdonk, John, and then last name's Onderdonk. Feel free to connect and reach out on LinkedIn. That's where I'm doing a lot of posting about the site and also connecting with filmmakers. And then Brandon is also on LinkedIn. His name's Brandon Whiteley. Whiteley spelled Whiteley, and we'd be super happy to connect with you and chat with you. From the consumer-facing perspective, we're putting the finishing touches on the site and just finalizing our launch titles, and so we haven't launched those social media sites yet, but they will be under the Flume TV handles once we get those up and running. And very, very much encourage everybody who's interested in learning more about this to reach out to us and get connected.
Great. And is there anything else you would like to add that I haven't already asked you about?
I think we're very, very excited about this concept. I think that there is such a need for independent filmmakers to have a place to put their content, and then for viewers who want the more niche and more cutting edge content to be able to go to watch that. And we're doing our best to create a very community centered platform, kind of around the principles that I've described so far. And we would love your feedback. And any filmmakers or any content fans, please get in touch. Please reach out to us. We want to make the site as relevant as possible for the audience that would be interested in this, both from the filmmaker side and from the content viewer side. So please just get in touch with us, and we'd love to know how we can work together to make this platform a success for everyone.
Well, I love that you're so open to feedback from people, interested in having their films on your site, or people who are going to be using the site to watch films. That's great. So I really want to thank you, John, for joining us today and for taking the time to share all this information about Flume TV. And I also want to give a big shout out to Brandon Whiteley, your co-founder, who wasn't with us today, but has obviously, helped you build this concept. So, yeah, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Now, in its second edition, Carol Dean's popular book, The Art of Film Funding, has 12 new chapters to cover all areas of film financing and how to avoid expensive pitfalls. Learn how to start with an idea and end with a trailer, how to make an ask for money, create your story structure and your trailer, legal advice, fair use, successful crowdfunding, how to ask for music rights, and what insurance you can't shoot without. Available on Amazon under Carol Dean and at FromTheHeartProductions.com. I want to remind our listeners that David Rakelin is a brilliant and talented award-winning musician who scores films and can compose music for a trio or for a full orchestra. David is a very good friend to the independent filmmaker and comes highly recommended by From the Heart Productions. If you need music to help tell your story, please contact him at davidrakelin.com. That's David, RAIKLEN.com. And Carol and I want to thank you for tuning in to The Art of Film Funding. Please visit our website at FromTheHeartProductions.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter. Good luck with your films, everyone.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. At American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University, Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.